because of our devotion and focus on trying to figure it out, even though it has been hard, that focus and that determination to work through even the hard times allows for us to be better and stronger from where we started from.
Yeah, it makes you who you are. All right, welcome back. I'm Jason.
And I'm Colter.
And this is the Passive Income Show. Or are we going to change that one day to MPI?
MPI.
MPI?
Yeah.
Well, stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned.
We just may say MPI, we may say Passive Income Show.
That's right.
It's a kind of mouthful. So,
all right.
Today's episode, awesome stuff.
We are going to talk about grit. So we've learned that the number one determining factor in long-term success is grit.
Yeah, and I think you can see that across the board for almost anything. I mean, even if you want to go back to Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison and the guy who invented John Deere in Moline, Illinois. I mean, how many times did some of those people declare bankruptcy? Ford. Henry Ford. How many times did he declare bankruptcy? How many different patents did he have? But what was the difference was his grit to stay the course, because he knew where he wanted to go. He had the goal set, he had the things going, but it was the grit that made the difference.
Yeah.
And I think grit is, we just had the stipulation or this difference. We talked about consistency and discipline, and those I think are both kind of action items, but grit I think is more of a state of mind. So let's talk more about that.
Yeah. It's funny, I think literally about grit of like when you chew on something and it's grit, or you have grits, right? that are more of like a southern food.
Yeah.
And I think about grits, and when you bite down on them, like it's hard. Mm-hmm. And you have to really like work at it to make sure that, that you get the satisfaction from the food, right? And I'm not sure that you always get the satisfaction from grits, but
enough brown sugar on anything.
Yeah.
It tastes good.
But I think it's the same thing. Is like if we're working towards something, it doesn't matter what gets in our way, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, whatever that barrier is to overcome in order to get to the place where we want to be. There's going to be good times and hard times, and we have to be ready to face all of those hard times with a certain level of grit so that we can accomplish what it is we set out to do.
Yeah, I love that. And just you saying it, I'm thinking, business, real estate, whatever it is, you need that in almost every aspect of your life. If it's about being healthy, if it's about being wealthy, if it's about your relationships, we think how much grit it takes on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to be a good dad, to be a good husband, to be a good friend, to be good in a relationship. I mean, keep a relationship with your parents. There's some people, it's a lot of work. And it's that grit and determination that I'm going to have a relationship or I'm going to die trying. And sometimes, that's what it feels like. You're like, you've done it all. You've done everything you can. And grit is such a character trait, I think, more than anything. Because you can tell when people are, they are determined and they've got the grit to stay the course. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing what they're able to accomplish and when you see the fruits of their labors, even though it may have been hard along the way, to keep that focus, that grit in there, the rewards are there. They really are.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to share an example, and I'm going to try and articulate all of the back and forth in a particular deal. So,
okay.
Let's see, it was Wednesday last week. I found a property. I ended up on a phone call with the lady that was selling the property, and she's selling it out of an estate, so she's a trustee.
Okay.
She had her asking price, and then I made her an offer. And she accepted my offer verbally and said, okay, and then can we do it according to these terms, X and Y and Z? And we defined those, X and Y and Z, purchase price, everything was well defined. It was very clear as to what that was. And I said, okay, I'm going to send over an agreement, and I'll, you can sign that digitally, or does it work for you to print it and sign it that way? And we went through this process, and it was seamless. Seemingly seamless, right? And so within an hour, we had a signed agreement that says, hey, you know what, I am going to be purchasing this property. Okay, I'll come and see it probably in the next 48 hours. And she had called me and said, okay, when's the inspection going to happen? And, when is it going to title? When are we going to make sure that these things all happen? And then we show up Friday. We go and tour the property. It was 12 acres of kind of some hills and etc. And so it was work to go and look at the property. And then at the end, we're like, okay, just make sure that we're going through and we're taking these steps. And her husband all of a sudden just throws out there like, I don't like the agreement. I just don't like it, and I'm going to expect this and this and this and this and this. Oh, really? Okay, let's talk. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Like, let's understand where you're coming from and what that means. And he's like, well, I don't think that she should have signed that agreement. Okay, help me understand, what it is that you think that she should have signed. And then he proceeded to tell me, well, I'm a greedy sucker anyways, and I want this and I want that. I'm like, okay, well, this is what we agreed to, and we've proceeded in good faith. We've toured the property, and now at the end of this, like, we feel like we have still a very reasonable agreement in place. Yeah. And he's like, okay, well, we're going to see what the official final agreement looks like with the title company. I said, yeah, that's fine. We'll go through the standard documents. It won't be that difficult. We'll go through and make sure that you're protected and we're protected. That's, a good faith action.
Part of the procedure.
He ended up calling me a name. And
really?
Wow. I was like, okay, well, I'm still pretty interested in the property. I don't really care what you call me. But at the end of it, I could have taken the initial reaction from him and said, you know what, it's just not worth it. It's not worth the conversation. It's not worth him, coming in and being mad because he feels like we should have had more conversation. Like, at the end of the day, I'm a decision maker. I make offers and I move forward because I know what I can do and I know what I can't do.
Yeah.
And it's easy after the fact of like, oh, I've got buyer's remorse or I have seller's remorse or whatever. No. Be okay with the decision. And he hadn't been part of the decision, so I can see, where his frustration might come in. But he's like, oh, I think we can get more out of the property. And I say, that's fine, but I made it. I made the offer.
Yeah, nobody else has.
And it was accepted, and that was okay until it's easy to tell maybe one or two other people that have come in after the fact, and you can say, hey, I've got an offer already accepted. And they can be like, oh, but I want to make an offer.
And I'll make it for more.
And I'll make it for more, right? Because it's really easy when it's already been established that somebody has the first position.
Because that establishes value.
It establishes value.
Yeah.
It validates that somebody is willing to pay X dollar amounts for that property.
And so then the thought is, well, if he's willing to pay that, I want somebody to pay more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but at the point, they don't know.
No.
Until you get an offer, then it's like, oh, now we've established value.
Yeah, and I threw out the comment, I'm like, hey, well, a bird in hand is better than two in the bush.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, well, I've already told her that anyway. So I'm like, that's great. Well, I'm the bird in hand. So
and I already murdered the bush. There's no more birds in there.
So aside from like aside from the like negative like energy that he was putting off, like I could have quickly stepped back,
or you could have got angry too.
I could have gotten angry,
and then his feelings would have hurt. It could have gone really bad.
They could have.
So part of your grit was just staying calm and saying, well, let's talk. Yeah.
So we talked through it, and I believe we still have a deal. I hope that he doesn't end up blowing up the deal still today. But now we're going to keep going forward and making sure that, that turns into something positive for them and for us, because that's the agreement that I came to from the very beginning. Now it's up to me to abide by my side. Maybe they will abide or they won't abide from their side. But that's not for me to determine. Yeah. I can control what I can control. I can't control what they have going on.
Sounds like he just wanted to be heard. And he felt like I didn't get a chance to be heard because the agreement happened without me being a part of it. Yeah. So it sounds like that's all he wanted. And you did a great job validating him, hearing him, talking to him. So if that was it, hopefully that's it, and the agreement will go through. Most people, they just want to be heard. And they feel like if they didn't get to say something about something that they think they should have, then now their feelings are hurt because they didn't get a chance to voice their opinion about something. Yeah. And so now you hurt somebody's feelings, not that you did on purpose, but their feelings got hurt. Now they're mad. They're mad and they're angry because their voice wasn't heard and they weren't part of the decision. I've been there. I've been there a bunch where a decision gets made and I'm like, what in the world? Like why would you even, it was okay. The deal was fine. It's just, I felt like I should have been a part of that deal. I should have been a part of the decision making and I wasn't. Mm-hmm. And man, that ticked me off. Like I had to really step back and say, why am I so angry about this? You know what I mean? But it happens. And so I think you did a great job on just validating him. He wanted to be heard. You let him talk. You heard what he said. You validated what he said, but still moved through with the procedure.
Well, and I hope so, because now I want to go close on this property and I feel like I have some value to add to that particular property. It hasn't performed for them for nearly 30 years. Mm-hmm. And, I have, a couple of steps that I think I can take and now it'll turn into a profitable property.
Yeah.
So anyways, that is one that I saw. And you know what? It took a certain amount of grit. There are way harder things to deal with than what I dealt with there. Why don't any examples? Like what is something that you've had to deal with in the near or distant past that you feel like you had to overcome to get to where you are today?
Here's kind of a fun deal that I did. He didn't quite have enough money, and he was $1,500 short. And he's like, look, this is all I have in this one account. This is all I have in this business. I don't have time to move any money, and I got to make it out of all this business. He says, is there anything I can do for you? Anything I could, to make up for the $1,500? And at first I was like, oh, don't worry about it. Then I'm like, wait a second. He owns a local movie theater. I want $1,500 worth of movie tickets. Done. Our family went to the movies for a year and a half, completely free. So that was, and I know that's not the part as far as grit or whatever else, but I validated him, he validated me, I got what I wanted, he got what he wanted, you know what I mean? So anyways, I love that story of yours of this guy. I think most people just want to be heard. I think that's what it is. Now you asked me a question, sorry, I went off on that tangent. Like at what point, what was it you said?
Share with us an experience of grit and something that you've either seen or have faced in the near or distant past.
Man, I'll tell you what, and not to be too vulnerable, but my marriage. I mean, it's awesome. I love my wife. We have the best relationship ever. But she went through a mental health crisis about a year ago, and I'll tell you what, it was nothing but grit and determination that I wanted this to work. It'd have been easy to have said, you know what, I'm out. It'd have been easy for her to have said the same thing. It'd been easy for both of us to have given up on what it was of the reason why we got together in the first place, to have a family, to have goals, to accomplish huge things and have a family and, raise kids. But it really was that grit that stuck me in there. I'm like, I didn't get married to get divorced. I didn't get married to give up. That's not what, I'm not saying that if somebody did, you have your own decisions to make. I'm not saying yours is wrong and mine is right. For me though, it really took my character of grit to keep things together. And I know I'm a little more vulnerable, probably people want to hear, but it's in every aspect of our lives. You got to figure out what you want and how bad you want it, and then that grit comes in of sticking with what you need to stick with.
Yeah.
And that's happened in a few deals. That's happened in business. I tell people all the time, we've made and lost more money than most people ever see in a lifetime. We really have over the last 20 years, and not bragging and not saying don't do business, but we've learned a lot and we've done a lot. And it's been that grit and determination that's kept us in the game. And I'm so glad it has, because it's given me the lifestyle and given me the opportunity to do things I would have never had the opportunity before to do, which is, to see every one of my nephews' wrestling matches, which I talked about last episode, to go to every one of my kids' games, to be coaches for all their baseball games. I mean, all these different things, it was because I had this burning desire of doing what I wanted to do and building a business so that I could build something for me and my family. And even though it's had some crazy ups and some crazy downs, it's been 100% worth every bit of it. So, yeah, I don't know if that was the right what you were looking for or not. But.
Good for you. Good for you. I mean, honestly, pushing through. And I want to share, it's interesting how we have a perception of how people are doing. And I heard the comment that if you go into every conversation thinking or looking for an opportunity to help a person and expecting that there's something going on in their lives that you may not know about, but you can help with, you're going to be right 50% of the time.
Well, bad. Probably 75%.
Probably, right? But I think about the perception that we have of people. And, a few years ago, 2018, my wife and our 3 little girls at the time and I went on a stateswide trip. We did 50 states in 50 weeks.
That's so awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. But that's your initial reaction. Like, hey, good job. Go team. Way to hit every state. That's an amazing achievement.
Yeah.
But they don't realize like how hard it was to go from a 3,000 square foot house to a 300 square foot box on wheels that changes locations every single day. Right?
I mean, only imagine.
Think about the mental exhaustion of, hey, my wife that was driving most of the time, 3 girls, 1, 3, and 5 years old starting out, a husband that's sitting in the passenger seat working full time and doing it remotely, so he can go and be a part of a lot of the things. But her then having to plan where we're going to next and getting some collaboration from me. Mm-hmm. But then having changed the entire lifestyle from home in a neighborhood with friends and people around us that we know and are familiar with to this box of, okay, looks like we're going down the road. And the ways that we had to find fulfillment in the time that we felt like we actually had together where we were all present. And the perception is, awesome,
yeah.
Good on you. Like you did 50 states in 50 weeks, or you're able to jump in the RV and travel. And that perception is skewed from the point of like, we want to find all of the positive things in that. And we do, we should look for the positive. But we should also realize that it isn't all sunshine and rainbows on this journey in life. And
that's what it's supposed to be.
It is.
It really is. It's not supposed to be all sunshine and rainbows. It's not. Otherwise, if we didn't have grief, if we didn't have sadness, we wouldn't be able to rejoice in our joyfulness. You know what I mean? It says that all over the scriptures. We have, not to say we have misery, we should celebrate it, but because we have dark times, it makes the light times that much brighter. Mm-hmm. I mean, if it was always cupcakes and ding-dongs, we wouldn't even want a cupcake or ding-dong anymore. You know?
Yeah, no. I agree. So, we have these examples of the really good things, the really, really tough things.
Yeah.
But you going through things, Paige and I have gone through things. At the end of the day, we are only stronger for who we are today because of the experiences that we have had together.
Yeah.
And, because of our devotion and focus on trying to figure it out, even though it has been hard at different times, that focus and that determination to work through even the hard times allows for us to be better and stronger from where we started from.
Yeah, it makes you who you are. Yeah. And I think that's the way we look at everything. We see this guy driving a new pickup. We see this couple that celebrates their 50th wedding anniversary. We see this business that's got 100 employees. We look at that and we think, wow, how would that be? How awesome would that be? But every one of those people, to get to where they're at, all have a story. Mm-hmm. And a story, I can almost guarantee you, they thought about giving up at one time or another. Or they thought about, did I make the wrong mistake? Am I in this too far? Should I get out? Should I sell? I mean, they've all had those at any time, almost across the board. But all we see is, like you just said, I went and saw 50 states in 50 weeks. And we all think, man, that must have been freaking awesome. We don't realize somebody had to set up and tear down camp every time you guys stopped, which I don't know if anybody camps. That's the worst part for me. Pulling in, leveling it off, getting set up, hooking up the hoses, hooking up the power. I mean, I'm the only one that can do it. My boys help me out, but it's got to be done. And then when you're ready to tear down, it's all going to be done again. So I mean, just that alone, 50 I mean, 50 weeks, and probably 3 times a week you moved around, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's 300 times you're setting up and tearing down camp. That alone takes grit. It does. And then driving, and then her going off and having to do things she needs to do, and you having to work, and I'm sure the kids were loud and you couldn't focus. So then you had to, hey, you guys need to be a little bit more quiet. I'm trying to get this done. And she probably went and did something while you sat at a coffee shop somewhere and finished up a meeting or finished up some work while she went off with the kids. I mean, it's awesome from the outset. I mean, I bet if you asked 10 people, would you like to do it with your family? They'd probably say, man, are you kidding me? I'd love to have that opportunity. But would any of them have the grit to finish? Or by the time they're done with, they'd be filing for divorce.
Well, and we joke, right? Like, what was your best state and your worst state, right? Well, my best state was the best state of mind. Like, if I had a good state of mind, we were in a great place, you know? But when we hit Missouri, that was misery.
Best day and the worst day was when you were finished.
Yeah.
That was your best day and your worst day. I mean, I'm sure. No, that's awesome. I love that topic of grit because, again, I think there's all sorts of actions and different ways that you can what's that word? Persevere. Yeah, persevere. That you can make it through it. But when it comes right down to it, it really is that ingrained grit inside each one of us. And I really think grit is a character trait. I really do. You know, people have all these different character traits, and I think grit's one of them. And I think everybody out there, if you've accomplished anything in your life, whatever that may be, big or small, you've got grit as part of your character.
Yeah.
Yeah, love that.
Well, thanks, Jason.
Yeah, thank you. Good conversation.
Yeah.
We've got a little bit of laughing in there. And
yes, we did.
thanks for tuning in.